Hello, everybody. Once again, this is Rogers Harrison, and welcome to another episode of the Sports Deep Dive Podcast. Now, this is the podcast that takes a sports figure, either a individual, a team, or a league, and takes a deep dive into more of that person, league, or team that you may not have known. Join me for this episode is Brian Koperick. Brian, how are you today?
I'm wonderful, Rogers. I'm wonderful.
Now, today we're going to look at Red Auerbach, who NBA fans know as tied to the Boston Celtics franchise. And full disclosure, Brian Koperick does not follow the NBA. Is that correct?
Do not. Not anymore. But I did at one time.
Okay. So maybe you might learn something.
I always learn something on your podcast, Rogers.
All right. So let's take a look at today's current landscape of the NBA. The Boston Celtics have 18 NBA championships. That includes a last year championship. The Los Angeles Lakers have 17. So they were tied before last year, and the Celtics have gone ahead. This is considered one of the NBA's best rivalries. It was came full steam ahead, so to speak, in the 80s when you had Magic Johnson of the Lakers and Larry Bird of the Celtics going head-to-head and competing for NBA championships. So 18 for the Celtics, 17 for the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, Red Auerbach has 9 of those 18 championships as a coach. And I can talk more about that later, but he's basically, as a coach, has got half of their NBA championships. So he's, as far as Celtics fans are concerned, he is the man.
I mean, if you have half of the championships for a team, you deserve to be the man.
Right. So Auerbach was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1917. His father was a Russian Jewish immigrant, and who left Russia when he was 13 years old. Now his mother was an American, and together they owned a delicatessen and then a dry cleaning business. So a dry cleaning business in Brooklyn.
A dry cleaning business in Brooklyn.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
That sounds like mob ties.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, that is Brian Koperick. Brian Koperick is that name. So send your nasty emails and letters to him. You're gonna hear something from the Celtic people. He loved to play basketball, and because of his fiery demeanor and red hair, Arnold Jacob Auerbach got the nickname Red. So he went by Arnold and then became Red. So here's this guy, Red Auerbach, playing basketball in Brooklyn. Went to high school, obviously, and played, and then went to college. He started out at the Seth Low Junior College, and then he received an athletic scholarship to play for the George Washington Revolutionaries men's basketball team in Washington, D.C.
So, just for perspective, Rogers.
Okay, here we go.
When was Red in... when was he in college?
Well, he graduated with an M.A. In 1941 from George Washington.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea.
Yeah, so late 30s, early 40s, he's in college.
He's in college.
And he played college ball. So that's pretty cool.
Right. All right. So he, after college, he coached some high schools. But then he got a break. and started coaching professionally.
Okay.
So Auerbach caught the eye of Washington millionaire Mike Uline, who hired him to coach the Washington Capitals and the newly founded Basketball Association of America, known as the BAA. And the BAA was a predecessor of what we now know as the NBA. So the Washington Capitals was the name of that basketball team, not to confuse with the National Hockey League team, also known as the Washington Capitals. So he's coaching the Washington Capitals from 46 to 49. So the 46-47 season, in 60 games, he went 49-11. All right. In the 47-48 season, he played 48 games, went 28-20. And then his last season, he coached 60 games and went 38-22. So he had some pretty good years in the BAA.
Yeah.
So, all right. So in 1949, he gets to coach in the NBA, right? And he gets to coach the Tri-City Blackhawks.
Okay.
Now, the Tri-City Blackhawks today are known as the Atlanta Hawks. That's that franchise. So, and I don't know why these basketball teams are copying hockey names, Capitals and Blackhawks, but
they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously they haven't today.
No, today it's
because
totally
they're not
different.
the Blackhawks, they're the Hawks, and then they're not the Capitals, they're the Washington Wizards. All right, so let's talk about his St. Louis days. All right, so Ben Kerner, Kerner,
Okay.
was the owner of the Tri-City Blackhawks.
And where were the Tri-Cities?
Now, the Tri-City Blackhawks were in the Milwaukee area.
Okay.
And they were in Wisconsin, and they were, they used to jaunt around between three cities. One in Wisconsin, and I think one in Illinois, and that type of thing.
Okay.
And so that was considered the Tri-Cities. So they were kind of like a gypsy, is that they would play some games
Here, some there, some
Yeah,
here.
right.
Try to spread it out, build
Right.
a bigger fan base with the three cities. Basically.
So anyway, Bob approaches Arnold,
Right.
because he didn't know him that well, and said, "Look, not only will I offer you the coaching position, but basically you will kind of be a de facto GM because you've got the green light to rebuild the team from scratch."
Okay.
And so he's like, "Well, yeah, I want to do that." And so what he would do is he traded more than 24 players in 6 weeks.
Oh, wow. Just cleaned house.
He cleaned house. Because the Blackhawks were one of the worst teams in the NBA.
He's like, I'm not even fooling with these guys.
I'm not even
They're
fooling.
out.
Yeah, it's kind of like Deion Sanders when he took over the University of Colorado.
Yeah, he just brought everybody in
Yeah.
new.
And people were like, "What? You can't do that." And he's like, "Watch me."
Yeah, I did, didn't I?
Yeah. So, and so that's what he did, and they improved a little, but they weren't world beaters. They for that season, for the 49-50 season, they had a losing record, but it was 28-29. So
Almost 50.
they weren't. Yeah, they were almost 500, and they weren't. They weren't as bad as the year before, but yet they weren't,
they weren't as good either as they needed to be.
That needed to be.
But, I mean, if you think about that, like a little bit, I mean, if he had non-world beaters on his team already, what he was able to trade for probably wasn't awesome either. Maybe just a little better or different than what he already had.
Yeah, because back then you couldn't trade for draft picks.
Right. You were just...
Because I don't think the NBA draft was around yet.
Even at that point.
So you're probably thinking, hey, why isn't Red Auerbach credited with, the Hawks franchise? Why is he credited with the Celtics franchise? And I'm going to tell you why.
All right.
Because what happened is that he had a little disagreement with the owner of the Tri-City Blackhawks.
Okay.
And
scandal.
Well, the owner said, you've got the green light to rebuild the team from scratch. And so he started trading players, right? But one of the owner's favorite player was a player by the name of John Mannikin.
Okay.
And the owner didn't like that real well.
That
he traded the owner's favorite player. And Red, was like, well, I mean, I had to trade him because he wasn't that good. And so they kind of had a disagreement. Now, meanwhile in Boston, they had just fired their coach. The Boston Celtics were, to put in a word, pathetic.
Okay.
They were not very good. And so the owner, and this would never happen today, but the owner was like, well, I got to get a new coach. And he asked the media.
Who should I go get?
He's like, because, they had a press conference, or not a press conference, but, he announced that, so-and-so is not coming back.
Right.
And he was like, who should I get? And the media suggested Red Auerbach.
Okay.
And he's like, all right, I'll go out and get him. And he got him. And
yeah, you're right. That would never happen.
That would never happen today.
No.
Because owners are more ego-driven.
Right.
And for a media member to suggest their next coach? What?
No.
That would never.
Media doesn't know anything.
Media does not know anything. All right, so you're probably asking yourself, why is Red so successful as a coach? I mean, he coached high school, did well. He coached, 2 professional franchises now. About to start his third. The Capitals and the Blackhawks. About to coach the Celtics. What's up with that? Are you asking that question?
I was.
All right, that's because Red Auerbach was one of the first coaches to invent fast break basketball.
Okay.
Now, for those of you who don't know, fast break basketball is basically you're constantly moving.
Yeah.
Before fast break basketball, basically you would dribble the ball down the court to your end of the basket, and you would just stop and maybe take a shot, or stop and pass, and then pass, and then pass, and then take a shot. It was
a lot slower.
And, people could, and that's kind of why the shot clock was invented, because, I mean, technically
they could pass the ball for 20 minutes.
Yes, yeah.
Never,
right.
Keep away, you'd never
right.
get it. Yeah.
But Red put a change to that. He's like, listen, let's go. Let's get down the floor. Let's hustle. Let's get down the floor. Let's line up our shot. Let's take the shot and move on. Get back on defense. And so teams had to adjust, because they would take their shot and make it, and they'd just be lolling gagging while Red's teams were just running down that court, taking that shot. So he is considered the, I don't know if the inventor is the right word, but he's considered the one who put who put the fast break
On the map.
in basketball, that type of thing. So that is how he was to be so successful. Excuse me. So, like I said, Walter Brown hired Red, and he started prior to the 1950-51 season, right? He coached Boston from 1950 to 1966, okay? Now, like I said, Boston was not very good, but that first year, they played 69 games. They went 39 and 30.
Okay, so winning season.
So a winning season. And to be honest with you, in his tenure as a Celtics coach, he would never have a losing season.
That's pretty incredible.
And when I say losing season, I'm talking about, I consider a season of 500 winning percentage on up to be winning.
Yeah. Well, I agree.
So if you win half your games, I consider that to be a winning season.
It was a successful season.
So I'm gonna read to you the winning percentages for those 16 years. You ready?
Sure.
All right, let's go. All right, 1950, like I told you, won 39 games, had a winning percentage of 565. 1951, 591. 1952, 648. 53, 54, 583, 54, 55, a 500 season. 55, 56, 542, 56, 57, 611, 57, 58, 681, 58, 59, 722, 59, 60, 787, 60, 61, 722, and 61 and 62 at a winning percentage of 750. 62, 63, 725, 63, 64, winning percentage of 738, 64, 65, winning percentage of 775, and then he took a step back in 65 and 66 and only had a winning percentage of 675.
Okay.
NBA champions in 56, 57, and then from 58 to 1966, through the 65, 66 was all straight NBA championships.
So 7 straight.
No, 8.
No, 8 straight NBA championships.
Yes. He won one in 56, 57, 57, 58. He did not win one. And then from 58, 59, from the 58, 59 season through the 65, 66 season, the Boston Celtics were NBA champions.
He just dominated.
It's
pretty awesome.
Some of his other feats is that he was the first player to sign a African American to play in the NBA. And that player was and then he also coached Bill Russell.
Oh.
And Bill Russell was the first African American head coach
So,
in the NBA.
I mean, that's pretty cool because, I've always known the name Red Auerbach, and
Right.
that, he was important to NBA history. But, what a cool legacy that he was sort of the front runner for a few things, like changing the face of the NBA with the fast break.
Right.
Because, there's still elements of that today, that fast-paced basketball. And it's in college, too. That really changed the league and how things got done. And eventually everybody, probably mimicked it to some extent.
Right.
And then for him to be also, a pioneer in bringing in African-American players, that also, good on him, because that was a time where that would have been very controversial, right?
Yeah,
to do
and,
that.
And so I mentioned Bill Russell, but he drafted the first African American player, and I don't think I mentioned that name, and that's Chuck Cooper.
Okay.
So I apologize, I did not mention that name before. First black player to be drafted by an NBA, and with that little pick, he basically broke the color barrier,
Which is amazing, right? I mean, at that time, for anybody, any of those people who pioneered those breaks, that is awesome. And then it changed the face of the NBA. Look at these athletes are amazing, and a lot of them are African American or other nationalities. But I mean, that's pretty cool. That's actually really cool, not pretty cool.
Okay, so Auerbach had 938 wins and 9 championships. After he finished coaching the Celtics, he became general manager and team president of the franchise, and he won an additional he won an additional 7 NBA titles. So he had a total of 16 NBA titles in the span of 29 years as a coach and an executive.
That is crazy.
Now, do you remember me telling you how many championships the Boston Celtics have in their franchise history?
Yeah, 17.
No.
18.
18.
Yeah, that's right. 17.
So Red Auerbach has been responsible in some way or another, either as an executive or as a coach, for 16 of the 18 Boston Celtics titles.
That is crazy.
Can you believe that? Now, let me tell you about him as an executive and the things he did. So, first of all, now if you follow the postseason at all, like for instance in baseball, you'll know that a 7-game series in baseball is broken up where the team with home field advantage they'll play 2 games at that field, then they'll move to the other team's field and play 3 games, and then they'll move back to the one with the home field advantage to play games 6 and 7. Right? So, but Red Auerbach didn't quite like that little setup. In most cases, his team, the Boston Celtics, was the one with the home court advantage. And he's like, this home court works if if you do if you win a 4-game series, right? I mean, 2 at their place, 2 at our place, 2 at their place. We win all 4. We move on to the next. But what if the other team wins 1 at in Boston, right? Then they've suddenly got home court advantage under the 2-3-2 format. So what he suggested was, and which is what the NBA uses today, was a 2-2-1-1-1 format.
Right.
And I believe that's also what the NHL uses in their playoffs.
Yep.
And the reason why is that because the NHL commissioner used to be an NBA assistant commissioner.
Oh.
And so he just kind of
paralleled that
brought that forward when he came over.
I have to say, I like that format. It makes a lot more sense. And it does help with the home court advantage or home ice advantage, whichever one you're talking about. So another thing that he pioneered.
Yeah, because he felt I don't want, if I've got home court advantage,
it's not an
advantage. I don't want. I've got to maintain that, and I maintain that through that format 2-2-1-1-1.
Right.
So all right. So let me tell you. Let me tell you about him as an executive. Like I said, he drafted the first African American when he was the coach, and he also appointed Bill Russell to be a coach. He was the first African American to be a head coach of any of the professional sports at the time. He was with the Celtics from as an executive from '66 when he was through with coaching, all the way to 2006.
Wow.
So he was. I mean, and you like most people who've been around for a while, right? You might think, well, I mean, he probably lost a step or two, in the early 2000s, wasn't as sharp as mind and all. But holy cow. I mean, if I were the Celtics, I would say, you know what, Red, you can be our executive till you die. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
because of what he did for that franchise.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, look, man, you just tell us when you're done.
Yeah. Or
we'll listen to whatever you got to say. Show up when you want. You know?
Yeah. And I don't know what they were paying him, but they were probably like, look, here's a check. Here's a blank check. You fill in the numbers.
Right.
Right. That'll be your salary.
Right.
So what a deal. Now, do you have that deal at work, Brian?
No.
Oh, you don't?
No,
okay.
That would be awesome. But
Yeah.
I could use a blank check.
You could use a blank check, just fill in the numbers?
Yes. Well, I mean, how cool, though, and for that long, I mean, that's pretty much unheard of.
Yeah.
Right? I mean...
Yeah. One thing that Red Auerbach was known for, and I forgot to mention this, was that if victory was close by, like as a coach, he would pull out a cigar, light it up, and start smoking on it. Now, all right, so when I say victory is close by, I'm talking like the last minute or two in a game. Celtics are ahead of the opponent. He pulls out this cigar.
Like a victory cigar.
And starts lighting it up.
Throws it in their face.
Yeah. And of course, the players of the other team and the fans are like, what?
What's going on?
What's going on? And of course, the people of Boston loved it.
Oh, I'm sure.
They loved it.
I'm sure. That was like a thing.
Yeah.
And like, Red's got a cigar out. We got it tonight.
So, and then, he, of course, you could smoke in NBA arenas, and wasn't the smoking laws that we have today in NBA. So he would just, and even if there was, and you're playing in the Boston Garden, are you going to be the one to tell Red to put out a cigar?
No.
I mean, seriously.
Right. He's like, I own this building. No. I mean, he seems like a really decent guy. For all of his.
He had an arrogant way about him, but again, he could back it up. I mean,
right.
16 out of the 18 championships are credited under him.
Right.
So, all right, when he was an executive, the Celtics had some pretty, we're talking late 70s, had some lean years. Red was approached by the New York Knicks.
Okay.
And they're like, Red, maybe you need to change the scenery. Maybe you need to come over here. And he thought about it, and Bostonians were kind of worried. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we could lose our
dude,
our
patriarch,
our basically our franchise."
right?
And so they're like, "Red, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" So he in fact, the legend has it that even a cab driver in Boston would plead with him to stay. Just please,
Just don't go. Don't
we
go.
need you. We need you here. It's just legend. I mean, I can't confirm that. But soon after that, he held a press conference. And he in that press conference, he pulled out his trademark cigar, puffed on it, and stated, "I'm not going anywhere. We're going to sign Larry Bird, and we're going to be on top again."
Boom.
And
he wasn't wrong.
And you know what they did?
They
signed Larry Bird, and they were on top again.
Yep.
In fact, I heard this from, I believe Magic Johnson said this in an interview about Larry Bird. And he was like, the NBA was, is that he knew that Larry Bird was popular among everybody, not just white people, when Magic Johnson saw black kids wearing Larry Bird's jersey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you've arrived.
You have.
Type of thing. All right. So anyway, that's just a quick deep dive into Red Auerbach. He, like I said, was his Celtics career started in the 1950 season all the way to 1966 as a coach. And then in 66, he started becoming an executive and general manager, and that was for 40 years until 2006. And he died, we were talking about, Red, basically you can be in office till you die. Well, he did. He died on October 28th, 2006 at the age of 89. So, yeah. So Boston, the Celtics basically said, "All right, you're our guy until you die," and that's what happened.
Yeah. 40 years.
Like I said, 938 victories as a coach, and that's mostly Boston, but that includes the Tri-City as well as the Washington franchises. 16 out of the 18 championships that the Celtics have won have been because of him in some way, either as a coach or an executive. That's today's episode, Red Auerbach Sports Deep Dive.
Awesome.
All right. So if you like this episode, or if you've I would encourage you to listen to the other Sports Deep Dive episodes that are out there. You can like and subscribe, and of course, you can find us on this platform that you're listening to, or any other podcast platform out there. Tell your friends about us, and that we take a look at sports figures, sports teams, sports franchises, sports leagues, and we take a deep dive. We've looked at minor league baseball. Mm-hmm. We've had a few college football deep dives. We've had a little NFL deep dive.
Yeah, we got into hockey.
We did. We talked about the NHL Original Six. So yeah, it's all out there. Just give us another listen and comment, and we appreciate it. All right, so for Brian Koparik, this is Rogers Harrison signing off, and thanks for listening to Sports Deep Dive. Have a great day.